Section 1, the frozen horizon. High stakes at 30,000 feet. January 11th, 1944. 29,000 feet above the snow-dusted plains of Lower Saxony, Germany. The cockpit of the P-51B Mustang is a cramped, vibrating pressure cooker of freezing air and high-octane fumes. Captain Thomas "Tommy" Hayes shifts his weight, the heavy canvas of his flight suit rubbing against the seat parachute outside the plexiglass canopy. The temperature is 40 Frost feathers the edges of the glass, a delicate white lace that belies the lethality of the environment. Below him, a vast combat box of B-17 flying fortresses stretches for miles, a silver river of aluminum lumbering toward the industrial heart of the Reich. The sound is a relentless, guttural roar. The 1,490 horsepower Packard V-116 Merlin engine. It's a mechanical symphony that feels like it's vibrating Hayes' very marrow. To his left and right, the rest of the 354th Fighter Group. The Pioneer Mustangs hang in the thin air, their long-range drop tanks clinging to their bellies like bloated parasites. Big friend to little friend. The radio crackles with a burst of static. It's the lead bomber's navigator. We've got bandits, 12 o'clock high, coming out of the sun. Hayes snaps his head up, his eyes stinging from the glare, search the blinding white orb of the winter sun. At first, there is nothing, then tiny black specks appear, pepper flakes thrown against a silk sheet. They are growing fast. Drop tanks, Hayes commands, his voice tight but level. With a rhythmic clack thud, dozens of metal fuel tanks tumble away into the abyss. The Mustang suddenly feels alive, its nose lifting as it's unburdened of 300 gallons of dead weight. Hayes jams the throttle forward to the gate. The Merlin screams in response. This is no longer a cruise, it is a sprint for survival.
The evolution of the hunter.
Here's the Luftwaffe and the upper hand. The Messerschmitt F-109 and the Tactical Fu-190 had feasted on unescorted bombers. But today is different. The P-51 Mustang has arrived. A marriage of an American airframe and British engine soul. Across the divide, Oberleutnant Hans-Joachim Hajobrand of JG-1 Osaw feels the familiar surge of adrenaline. He is strapped into the seat of a Bf-109 G6, the Gustav. He rolls his aircraft inverted, the air spinning above his head, and pulls into a terrifyingly steep dive. His objective isn't the nimble fighters, it's the heavy bombers. If he can break their formation, the day belongs to Germany. But the silver silhouettes of the Mustangs are already banking to meet him. Brand notes the silhouette, the distinct radiator scoop under the belly, the square-tipped wings. The Americans have long legs now, he thinks grimly.
The first pass. Metal on metal.
Exposure rate is over 600 miles per hour. Hayes sees the yellow nose of the lead 109. He centers the glowing reticle of his N3B gun sight on the Messerschmitt's path. This is deflection shooting. He isn't aiming at where the German is, but where he will be in 2 seconds.
He squeezes the trigger on a stick.
4.5 Aichio caliber Browning machine guns erupt. The air in the cockpit smells instantly of cordite. Tracer rounds, glowing streaks of white and red, arc across the sky. They reach out and stitch a line of fire across the 109's engine cowling. Grant feels his aircraft shudder as the heavy slugs punch through his coolant lines. A spray of glycol hits his windscreen, instantly flash freezing into an opaque brown smear. He is blind. He kicks the rudder, side-slipping the plane to clear his vision, but the Mustang is already looping back. He's braking left. Hayes shouts into his mask. He pulls back on the stick, feeling the G-forces press him into his seat. 2 Gs, 3 Gs. At 4 Gs, his vision begins to gray out at the edges as blood is drained from his brain. He manages his energy maneuverability. The Mustang is faster in a dive, but the Bf-109 can climb like a homesick angel. Grant, despite his damaged engine, pulls his nose up, trading his downward speed for altitude, trying to lure the American into a prop hang where the Mustang will stall out and fall like a stone. Not today, Hayes grunts, easing his turn to preserve his airspeed. He watches the 109's tail feathers tremble as it nears the stall.
Below them, the air is filled with the chaos of the greatest show on Earth. Spitfires from the RAF are diving in from the flanks, their elliptical wings cutting through the thin air as they engage Fusilier 90s. The sky is a tapestry of white condensation trails, black puffs of flak, and the orange blossoms of exploding aircraft.
Hayes levels out, his eyes scanning for his wingman. In this arena, the moment you focus on one kill is the moment you become 1 January 11th, 1944. 12:14 p.m. over the outskirts of Brunswick. The G-forces scream against Hayes' ribs as he hauls the Mustang into a high-side yo-yo. His vision narrows, the world turning a grainy charcoal gray at the edges, the gray out before the black. He is trading kinetic energy for potential altitude, clawing for the sky to stay above the Messerschmitt. Below him, Brandt's 019 G6 is a flickering shadow against the white cloud deck, trailing a thin, rhythmic wisp of black smoke from its damaged Daimler Benz engine. Blue 2, stay on my wing. Hayes grunts into his oxygen mask, his breath coming in ragged, metallic gulps. He's trying to drag us into a climb. Reno is a veteran of the Eastern Front, a stab-survival with 20 kills etched into his memory. He knows the Mustang is heavier, its laminar flow wing designed for high-speed efficiency, not the low-speed dogfight clutter of a turning circle. He pulls his stick back further, the slats on his 109's wings hopping out with a mechanical clack, an automatic feature that prevents a low-speed stall. The Messerschmitt hangs on its propeller, nose pointed straight at the sun, defying gravity. The physics of death. In the cockpit of the P-51, Hayes watches the distance close. This is the deadly zone. If he follows Brandt into the vertical, the Mustang's heavier wing loading will cause it to fall out of the sky first. Instead, Hayes rolls his aircraft 180 degrees, flying inverted for a split second before pulling the nose down. He's performing a split S, using gravity to regain the airspeed he lost in the turn. He looks back over his shoulder. The 109 has topped out. For a heartbeat, Brandt is weightless, his aircraft suspended in a delicate balance between lift and a plummet. It is the moment of maximum vulnerability.
Got you.
Hayes whispers. He rolls the Mustang back upright and drapes the glowing orange beads of his K-14 gyroscopic gun sight over the German's flight path. This is deflection shooting at its most cerebral. The lead computing sight calculates the distance and the curve of the bullet's flight. Hayes doesn't aim at the Messerschmitt. He aims at a seemingly empty patch of blue sky 3 lengths ahead of it. The 4 Brownings bark again. The tracers aren't just light. They are .50 caliber incendiary and armor-piercing rounds. They strike the 109's fuselage, ripping through the thin aluminum skin. One round finds the oxygen bottle behind the pilot's seat. A flash of white-blue light erupts from the German cockpit.
The scramble for the deck.
Grant feels the heat before he feels the pain. His cockpit is suddenly a furnace. He kicks the canopy release. The heavy glass frame vanishes into the slipstream with a violent boom. With a desperate heave, he rolls the burning 109 toward the earth and tumbles out into the freezing, thin air. His parachute blooms like a white poppy against the dark green of the German forests. Hayes doesn't watch him go. Break left, break left. Blue 2 screams over the radio.
A shadow falls over Hayes' cockpit. Tracers, thick, slow-moving green orbs of 20mm cannon fire streak past his wingtip. A Focke-Wulf Roll 190 Butcherbird has dived from the clouds above, his radial engine roaring like a chainsaw. The pilot, a young lieutenant eager for his first heavy kill, has overshot his mark in his excitement.
The fluid wand of tea flashes past Hayes' nose, so close he can see the black 13 painted on its side and the oil streaks on its belly. Tune plus Helveg. The battle has shifted from the thin, freezing stratosphere down toward the jagged, rolling hills of the German countryside. As they dive, the air becomes thicker, the engines louder, and the stakes more intimate. At 5,000 feet, there is no room for error. A single mistimed pull on the stick means a high-speed stall and a fireball in a farmer's field.
The low-level duel.
The Focke 190 is a different beast than the 109. It's rugged, heavily armed, and has a roll rate that makes the Mustang feel like a freight train. The German pilot snaps his aircraft into a series of violent rolls, trying to shake the American off his tail. Hayes stays patient. He knows the Mustang's secret weapon, the Merlin's low-altitude power. He eases the throttle, keeping his speed just below the compressibility limit where his controls would lock up. He watches the Focke-Wulf's shadow on the ground, a dark cross racing over snow-covered haystacks and stone wall. The German pilot is desperate. He levels out, hugging the treetops, weaving between church steeples in a small village. Hayes follows, his prop wash blowing the snow off the roofs. The ground is a blur of brown and white.
He's trying to lead us into the flag.
Blue 2 warns. Ahead, the horizon is dotted with the flashes of 20 million Nagert Flakbierling 38 quadruple mount cannons. The German village isn't just a village, it's a protected rail hub.
The butcher bird is dragging the Mustangs into a kill zone of ground-based Steel Section 3. The flak trap, low-level desperation.
January 11th, 1944, 12:22 p.m., 500 feet above the outskirts of Oschersleben.
The world is a horizontal blur of gray stone and white snow. At this altitude, the sensation of speed is terrifying. Hayes can see the individual shingles on the farmhouse roofs as he banks his Mustang, the G-force pulling his head toward his shoulder.
The woman that it be black thinks is a dark splinter darting between the trees just ahead.
Suddenly, the ground erupts.
Thump, 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 thump.
The German Flakbierling 38 crews have been waiting. Quadruple 20mm barrels traverse with mechanical precision, stitching the sky with flak curtains. Glowing green tracer rounds, looking like lethal golf balls, zip past Hayes' canopy. One shell clips the tip of his left wing, punching a jagged hole through the star and bar insignia. The Mustang stutters, a shudder running through the stick that feels like a physical blow to Hayes' arm. Blue 2, break high! Break high! Hayes screams, his voice cracking.
That reception.
The Blue 190 pilot, seeing the flak start to bracket his pursuers, pulls a violent high G turn to the right, intending to loop back and catch the Mustangs as they dodge the ground fire. It's a classic scissors maneuver, but the German pilot makes a fatal mistake. He underestimates the Mustang's stability in a high-speed bank.
Hayes doesn't follow the turn. Instead, he pulls the nose up slightly, gaining 50 feet of altitude, just enough to clear a line of poplar trees, and then kicks the rudder hard. The Mustang skids through the air, a snapshot opportunity presenting itself for a fraction of a second.
The Blue 190's cockpit is framed perfectly in the center of the ring. Hayes squeezes the trigger. The poor Brownings roar. This time, the concentration of fire is devastating. The .450 caliber rounds strike the Huel 90's wing route, where the ammunition drums and fuel lines converge. A spectacular explosion of orange and black soot consumes the butcher bird. The aircraft doesn't just crash, it disintegrates. Pieces of the radial engine and jagged shards of the wing rain down into a frozen beet field. There is no parachute.
A heavy toll.
Splash 1 pocket wolf. Clay's pants, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird, but there is no time for celebration. Blue 2, where are you? Silence. Hayes swivels his head, searching the smoke-filled sky. He sees it, a trail of white vapor and black oil. Blue 2, flown by 19-year-old Lieutenant Skippy Miller, is limping away toward the west. His cooling system has been punctured by flak, the Merlin engine is bleeding out, and the temperature gauge is pinned in the red. Come on, Skippy. Keep her level, Hayes urges, pulling alongside the crippled Mustang. He can see Miller inside the cockpit, frantically working the manual fuel pump. Behind them, the horizon is thickening with more specks. The Luftwaffe isn't finished. Elements of JG-11, flying the heavy-hitting Bef-109 G-10s, are diving from the sun to pick off the stragglers. The hunters have become the hunted. The long road home. The mission has shifted from air superiority to a desperate escort. Hayes has to protect his wingman across 300 miles of hostile territory. The Mustang's legendary range, the very thing that allowed them to reach Brunswick, is now their only hope for a home plate landing in England. A losing power cap, Miller's voice is small, filtered through the hiss of his oxygen mask, engine seizing. You've got the best glide ratio in the ETO, son Hayes lies, his eyes scanning the clouds for the telltale glint of Messerschmitt wings. Just keep the nose on the horizon. I'm right here. Nobody touches you. As they cross the Rhine, the sun begins its winter dip, casting long, bloody shadows across the clouds. In this twilight, the P-51 and the Bef-109 continue their dance, a contest of technology, grit, and the cold reality that in the skies over Europe, there are no silver medals, only the quick and the dead January 11th, 1944. 40 p.m., 18,000 feet over the German-Belgian border. The silence in the cockpit is a new kind of terror. For Lieutenant Skippy Miller, the rhythmic thunder of his Merlin engine has been replaced by a sickening, mechanical, grinding, and then nothing. The propeller slows, its three blades windmilling uselessly against the freezing slipstream. The Cadillac of the skies has become a 5-ton glider. Cap, she's dead. I'm a brick. Miller's voice is remarkably calm, the stoicism of a man who has accepted the inevitable. Hayes pulls his Mustang in tight, his wingtip barely 10 feet from Miller's. He can see the oil streaks coating the silver belly of Blue 2. Below them, the Rhine River snakes through the landscape like a frozen lead pipe. Trim it out, Skip. Hold 100 at the second ones. His commands, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror. There. 2 silver-gray gnats emerging from the haze of the horizon. They aren't Rocky Wolves this time. They are the high-altitude specialists. The beef nest and gold east. The beef nut gold by a buffalo. Creole's actor, sir. I'm down the swagger. Dave spotted an even cock and alone I picked her. They are banking, sensing an easy double kill to pad their abscious tallies.
Guardians stand.
Hayes knows he can't outclimb them while tethered to a gliding wingman. He has to bluff. He jams the throttle to war emergency power, the Merlin screaming as it injects a water methanol mix into the cylinders for a temporary surge of 1,720 horsepower. He breaks away from Miller, turning sharply toward the approaching Germans. He isn't seeking a kill, he's seeking to disrupt their rhythm. The lead 109, flown by a seasoned Oberfeldwebel, sees the Mustang's aggressive posture and hesitates. In the high-stakes game of energy maneuverability, the one who holds the initiative holds the life of his opponent. Hayes fires a short, wasteful burst of .50 caliber rounds from 1,000 yards, well out of effective range, but the tracers create a psychological barrier. Blue and ice split. One high, one low. They're sandwiching me, Hayes grunts. He pulls into a vertical roll, the sky and earth swapping places in a dizzying kaleidoscope. He's using the Mustang's superior high-speed handling to keep both Germans in his peripheral vision. He can't let them get a solid lock on the gliding Miller. The ghost in the HUD. As Hayes maneuvers, he relies on the K-14 gyroscopic gun sight. Unlike the fixed rings of earlier wars, this ace maker uses a series of mirrors and gears to predict the lead required. He snaps his Mustang into a 60-degree bank, the G-load making his flight suit feel like it's made of lead. He catches the trailing 109 in the diamond of his sight. Don't think, feel. He squeezes a half-second burst. The heavy machine guns hammer, the vibration rattling the entire airframe. The rounds stitch across the 109's tail unit. The German pilot, spooked by the accuracy of the long-nosed American, rolls inverted and dives for the deck, breaking off the engagement. But the lead 109 is still there, and it's closing on Miller's tail.
Skip, hard left. Now, Hayes yell.
Miller kicks the rudder of his dead aircraft. The Mustang wallows, losing precious altitude, but the move is just enough. The Germans' 20 Miller cannon fire streaks through the space where Miller's cockpit had been a second before. The final stretch. Hayes is back on the German 6. He's pushing the Merlin beyond its design limits. Smoke begins to wispy from his own engine cowling. The heat gauges creeping into the danger zone. He doesn't care. He closes the distance to 200 yards, so close he can see the mottled camouflage on the 109's fuselage. The German pilot realizes he's lost the energy advantage. He looks back, sees the snarling intake of the Mustang filling his vision, and makes the only choice left. He dives for the safety of the clouds below. Hayes doesn't follow. His primary mission is the boy in the gliding silver bird. They're gone, Skip. They're gone, Hayes breathes, his hand shaking as he throttles back to save his own overheating engine. The coast of the North Sea appears on the horizon, a thin line of gray against the darker blue of the water. They are low now, under 4,000 feet. The English Channel is a cold, unforgiving grave for those who don't make the crossing.
I can see the water cap, Miller says, his voice cracking with emotion. I think I can make the cliffs.
The duel for Europe's skies wasn't just won in the factories of Detroit or the design bureaus of London. It was won in these moments of mechanical grit, tactical brilliance, and the sheer refusal to leave a man behind in the freezing blue void. January 11th, 1944, 2:15 p.m., 2,500 feet over the English Channel. The English Channel is a slate gray sheet of glass today, deceptively calm but lethal to any pilot who touches its freezing surface. For Lieutenant Miller, the silence is now absolute. Without the roar of the Merlin, he can hear the whistle of the wind through the gun ports and the rhythmic creak of his flight controls. His altimeter needle is a slow-motion clock ticking downward toward zero. Drop your seat as low as it'll go. Skip Hayes radios his own engine vibrating with a worrying metallic rattle. If you have to ditch, you want every inch of protection between your head and that gun sight.
The aerodynamics of hope.
At 2,000 feet, the white cliffs of Dover are visible, a ghostly pale line on the horizon. But the math is cruel. A P-51 Mustang has a glide ratio of roughly 15.1. For every foot of altitude Miller loses, he travels 15 feet forward. At his current descent rate, he's going to fall 3 miles short of the coast. I'm not going to make the beach, Cap Miller says, his voice steady now. He begins the ditching checklist, canopy open, harness locked, flaps up to maintain speed. Hayes looks down at the water. It's 14. A man in a standard flight suit has maybe 20 minutes before hypothermia shuts down his heart. Look for a swell, Skip. Land parallel to the waves, not across them. And for God's sake, keep the tail down.
The impact.
At 100 feet, the water ceases to be a surface and becomes a wall. Miller flares the Mustang, pulling the nose up until the airframe shudders on the edge of a stall. The massive radiator scoop under the belly, the very thing that makes the P-51 a long-range masterpiece, is a lethal liability here. As it hits the water, it acts like a giant bucket, scooping up tons of liquid and jerking the plane violently downward.
Crash.
A geyser of white spray erupts. The Mustang disappears for a moment, swallowed by the channel.
Hayes circles above his heart and his throat. Come on, Skip. Get out of there.
Seconds crawl by like hours. Then, a small yellow dot appears. Miller's life raft has inflated. A moment later, the pilot's head pops above the surface, his hands frantically splashing toward the yellow rubber ring. Behind him, the silver tail of the Mustang rises one last time toward the sky before sliding beneath the waves forever. The rescue and the reckoning. Hayes stays on station, his own fuel gauges dancing on the E-mark. He switches his radio to the emergency Mayday channel, broadcasting the coordinates of the downed pilot to the RF Air Sea Rescue high-speed launches. Dumbo, the little friend, we have your position, a British voice crackles. A walrus amphibian plane is already banking toward them from the direction of Manston. Hayes watches until the walrus touches down near the yellow raft. Only then does he turn his nose toward his own base at Leiston. His engine is surging now, the Merlin coughing out its final puffs of black smoke, but the airfield is in sight. As his wheels touch the grassy runway, the engine dies. The silence that follows is deafening. Hayes climbs out of the cockpit, his legs feeling like jelly. He looks at his ground crewmen who have worked all night to make this flight possible, and simply shakes his head. The duel for Europe wasn't just about the 109s or the Mustangs. It was about the men who flew them, the thin line between a hero and a casualty, and the relentless pressure of a war that demanded everything. On the chalkboard in the debriefing room, the intelligence officer marks 2 confirmed kills next to Hayes' name. But as Hayes looks out at the empty spot on the ramp where Blue 2 should be parked, the victory feels as cold as the Channel water. The Mustang and the Messerschmitt would meet again tomorrow and the day after that, until one side simply had no more planes or no more men left to fly them.